hey, if you're looking to buy a business or maybe sell your own business and you're at the stage where you're wanting to get a rough idea of how much this business might be worth, maybe you're not quite to the point where you need a certified business appraisal, but you just want to get a rough idea, kind of like a Zillow Zestimate for your house. You want to get a rough idea, but you're not quite to the point where you're ordering an appraisal of your house yet. This tool that we have built, our business valuation calculator, we hope is going to be helpful to you to give you a rough idea of how much your business might be worth. And we have taken 3 different valuation methods that are commonly used for small businesses. And we built this little calculator, simple 1-page spreadsheet here, where you can enter in some assumptions and some information, and you'll get 3 different business valuations based on the 3 different methods. And again, this is not meant to be kind of the final appraisal, right? We are not certified business appraisers, but this is in the early stages, should give you a quick, rough idea. And a little bit about my background that even got us to the point where we built this tool. I'm the co-founder of Projection Hub, and we help founders create financial projections, typically for potential investors and lenders. And a lot of times we found that our clients were creating projections to then go into a part of a business valuation calculation. And they were trying to calculate the value of their business maybe for an acquisition, for a small business acquisition. And that's why they needed the projections. Well, they also wanted to get a rough idea of the value of the business. And so we thought, hey, we could build a simple tool here to help with that as well. I also spent a decade as the executive director of a SBA, a Small Business Administration loan program, where we made a lot of loans to small businesses for small acquisitions, acquiring different small businesses. And so have some experience in just trying to understand and get a rough idea of whether a deal or a price for a business even makes any sense to engage in before you get to kind of the official appraisal later in the process. So that's what the purpose of this tool is. A little bit of background about us. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to use the tool now. Okay, so to start with, we are going to look at our valuation method. 1 is a book value method, and this is a really simple and straightforward method. And really all you need is the company's balance sheet. So if you have the company, if you're looking to sell your business and you have your balance sheet, or you don't have a balance sheet, maybe you have a business and you don't even know what a balance sheet is, really what you need to know is what are the value of your assets, what are the value of your liabilities or your debts, and then what is the value of the intangible assets. Now, these intangible assets would be things like goodwill, copyrights, patents, things like that, that are not, a piece of equipment or a building or land, that sort of thing, not a physical hard asset, right? So if you have those 3 numbers, then you can calculate a book value for the business. And this is relatively common of an approach for valuing a small business where you're really just buying or acquiring the assets of the business. And so you can see what we're doing here. You just enter in numbers in these highlighted blue boxes. And if you had $750,000 in assets, $125,000 in debts, you'd have $625,000 in equity. But then the book value method also backs out the intangible assets, so it would give you a book value of $575,000. So that's one method. Another common method to value a small business is a discounted cash flow method. Now, this is a little bit more complicated. The first thing you're going to need is a projected cash flow, and you can do that for really, you could do that for many, many years. If you wanted to project out more than 5 years, you could do that, but we kind of stuck with a standard 5-year cash flow projection. And if you don't have a set of cash flow projections, we've got right here, you can click this link here, and it's going to send you to our library of financial projection templates. We've got about 70 different financial projection templates for all sorts of different industries and businesses. And we'll put a link to this also in the description of the video below. But you'll be able to go produce your cash flow projections and then come back to this tool. And once you have 5 years of cash flow projections, you can enter in those numbers here. But you may already be coming to us with a set of cash flow projections, or you might say, hey, we know last year we had cash flow of 50,000 and we think we're just going to increase that by 25,000 a year. We're going to keep it simple. We don't need to do a full set of projections. That's fine too. So you can kind of keep it simple and just put in your assumptions. But whatever you do put in here as assumptions will make a big difference in your valuation. And so you want to make sure that you think these are reasonable. Now, if you're trying to sell the business, you need to especially make sure that whatever you're projecting and using as part of the value of the business that you can defend that. Prove to the buyer why these projections are reasonable, right? Because what the buyer is going to do, and if you're the buyer side here, what you could do is you could do the same thing. You could go through your own exercise and say, well, we're going to buy this business, but we don't think it's going to grow that fast. And so we just do a $10,000 cash flow increase each year instead of $25,000. That's going to make a big difference on that ultimate valuation of the business. Okay, then there's a couple other assumptions that you need to make for a discounted cash flow valuation method. You need to have a future growth rate assumption. Now, the assumption here is that this is the percentage rate that the business is going to grow kind of forever after these 5 years of projections. So you get to project what your cash flow is going to do specifically for the next 5 years. But then after that, we just kind of pick a percentage and say, this is what it's going to grow like forever beyond this. And so, a common number that people might use is somewhere around the kind of global economic growth or the national economic growth. So you may have heard of like the GDP of a country, the gross domestic product. That this is kind of what percentage of the general economy is growing. And that may be kind of a safe and conservative number, just to say we're just going to apply that number to our business and say we think we're going to grow like on average, just an average business like everybody else. So that's why we've got the 4% in there as a default. Okay, discount rate. This is another percentage assumption that you need to enter in. And the discount rate can be really across the board, and different people are going to use different things. And a lot of this, is going to be tied to what the Federal Reserve, what they set their interest rates at. But a common way to think about what the discount rate would be is this could be your cost to borrow or raise equity, which is often called the weighted average cost of capital. So in general, I think we're probably, our audience is typically small businesses. And, I'm kind of thinking, let's take an average interest rate for an SBA loan over a long period of time. And so 10% for an SBA loan is a pretty safe and conservative number to use over the course of decades, really. And so I think that's probably a decent number. If you're a small business, you can use a 10% discount rate. But again, these percentages, whatever you put in here does make a big difference. And the buyer may put in one rate and the seller may put in a different rate, and that's going to cause the valuation to show up differently, right? So it's going to be a negotiation process, right? Okay, so when we put in those numbers, though, we are able to come up with a business value based on the discounted cash flow method down here, $2.339 million. All right, now there's the third valuation method that we're going to look at is the multiple of earnings. And so if you are a potential buyer, you're looking to acquire a business, what you would need is the company's income statement or their tax return, and you would be able to find these numbers. You could get their revenue, their cost of goods sold, their operating expenses, and then you should be able to find their interest expense, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. If you can't find amortization or don't know what that is, a lot of times it's probably considered depreciation. The amortization could be basically the depreciation of an intangible asset or a non-hard asset. So again, if you have all of these numbers available to you from company's income statement or tax return, enter those in here. If you don't have, if you can't find what they had in depreciation, you can leave that blank if there is no depreciation or you don't have that number, right? Okay, so that, once you enter in all of those numbers, that's going to give you this number, EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And what this is commonly considered your business's earnings, right? So this is what the business earned. In small businesses, there's also a concept of, or an acronym called SDE, Seller's Discretionary Earnings. And that could be used here as well. You could instead of EBITDA, you could calculate SDE, Seller's Discretionary Earnings, which is essentially if you buy this business, what are you going to be able to take home? What are you going to be able to keep as the owner of the business? And that number then is used as your earnings, and then a multiple is applied to that. Now, we have given a few slots here where you can come up with a high range, mid range, and low range multiple. So what I'm kind of recommending, or the way we built this template, is that you go out and you find a multiple for your industry. So if you Google, if you're trying to sell a car wash, you should be able to Google what multiple of earnings does a car wash sell for? And you will find some different industry data sources that will provide you a number, and you'll probably find different numbers. And so different sources will say, maybe here's a high range, it sells for 5.25 earnings, and maybe the low one that you find says it sells for 4 times earnings. And so you can put in these different options and different multiples here. And then the calculator here is going to just average that multiple. So when we average these 3 numbers, we get 4.58 as our average multiple. And then what we're doing to come up with the business value is we're multiplying the earnings, the EBITDA here, times the average multiple to come up with a business value of 2.29 million. And then the last thing we did here to kind of in the calculator was said, hey, let's average these different valuation methods. So we'll take the book value, discounted cash flow value, and the multiple of earnings value, and average them to come up with kind of one average business valuation number. So that's the process that we went through in the calculator. And again, just all the caveats here is that all of these things are really negotiation points, right? Like the multiple is a negotiation point, the discount rate, the interest rate, these are all negotiation points, even the book value. So you might say, well, I've got $750,000 worth of assets. But maybe when the buyer looks at that, they say, well, you've got $200,000 worth of inventory that you're valuing it at $200,000, but this inventory has been sitting in your warehouse for 2 years. We think it's worth $50,000. This is obsolete inventory, right? And so again, all of these numbers are the acquisition process or the investment process. Any of that is going to be a negotiation. So the purpose of this calculator is to help you, whether you're buying or selling, to have a tool to be able to quickly create some values and start that negotiation process. So hope this has been helpful. We'll put a link to this in the description of the video below, and a link to our different projection templates. And if you have any questions about how to approach filling this out, let me know. Feel free to reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com or leave us a comment in the comment section of the video below. Thanks.